Hi everyone. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this webinar, How to Develop an ACV as part of British Council's Cultures Connects Us online festival. I hope you're all in a good health, and for those of you who are fasting, I wish you a good fasting day. My name is Lisa from the British Council. I will moderate today's session. And we are very pleased to have Noeleen Hammond Jones, International Career Consultant from the University of Manchester, as our speaker today. Before we start, I will read the house rules for this webinar, as you can see in the screen. So the speaker already here. So please type your questions in the Q&A feature below, in the box below. So I will summarize the questions for the speakers. So after the session ends, you will be redirected to the questionnaire. Please spend your time to give your feedback. Your feedback is valuable to us, so we can think of the next event will be. So this session is being video recorded. By attending this session, you acknowledge that your image and comments may be recorded and rebroadcast. Okay, I would like to invite Noeleen to share your presentation. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Noeleen Hammond Jones. I just want to check everyone can see my screen okay, and there are no issues. Okay, so today's session is how to develop a great CV basically. So I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes and then we're going to do questions for 15 minutes. So any questions on this, do post them in the questions area. So what I hope to cover today is looking at the purpose of a CV, why we use a CV, or what is also known as a resume, what employers want, what they want to see on that CV, the structure, and this will be based on the UK structure, so it does vary from region to region, and I'll mention that quickly, and also what to include in your CV, what will help you to get through the recruitment process. And what UK study can help to develop the skills that you can include on that CV. So the purpose of a CV is to get you to the next stage of the recruitment process. So a lot of people will say the purpose of a CV is to get you an interview, but many recruiters will now use something up to 6 stages in the recruitment process at graduate level. So there's you might send your CV in via email initially. You might be asked then to fill out an application form, which will then be followed by either a video or a phone interview, some online tests, potentially attending either online or in person an assessment centre, and then you get to the interview. Now that's for the big international firms. Not all companies will operate like that. So smaller organizations may only have two stages or 3 stages, but employers are happy to share with you what that looks like. So it's up for debate how long an employer will take to reject a CV, anywhere between 8 and 20 seconds. And not all employers will accept CVs. So especially in the public sector in the UK or in higher education, you're expected to complete an application form. And also, whilst completing an application form, don't say, oh, don't not complete all the parts of an application form, and say, oh, refer to my CV, because your CV isn't always attached when the line manager receives your application form. So make sure you complete any application form thoroughly. So employers want to see on a CV what they're looking for. They are looking for good academic results. So they are looking for people who apply themselves academically, but they're also looking for a variety of skills, and these are developed through participation in events, societies, clubs, part-time jobs, internships, placements. So employers are not unless you're working in higher education, they're not hiring academics. So they want their future graduates to have additional experience and to make the most of your time at university. So that includes getting involved in clubs, societies, volunteering, part-time jobs. The skills you gain, even though they may not directly relate to the job, are absolutely essential in building team working, communication, problem-solving skills. In addition, it also gives you the opportunity to give examples of skills. So you can actually give an example of a situation where you use that skill. What employers also want to see is you tailoring your CV to the job description. So reading the job description thoroughly, always save the job description PDF or Word document, because once the job closes, it disappears. And then tailoring. So if they're asking for someone who's worked as part of a team, you can address that in your most recent experience, worked as part of a team of 10 people from 3 different countries. And that's what we mean by tailoring. And by doing your research as well in the organization, that demonstrates motivation. And how you can demonstrate that motivation is by looking at the company's values, the company information, and mentioning how maybe you match those based on your experience through your CV. And as I said, experience, interest, and hobbies are very important to employers, because you develop many soft skills by getting involved in various different opportunities. So my skills and experience, and these are the various different ways, and there's many more, but these are just a few that I've put together in a way of developing your skills and experience through interests or hobbies. There's opportunities, and most of these opportunities come through the university as well. So many universities will have these opportunities in terms of student societies, part-time jobs. If you've worked as part of a family business, if you've done a placement, work that you've done even at high school level is important. Traveling, if you're doing a vocational type qualification and you've attended a conference or a training day, that can also look really good. So it's really important to look at the various different ways in which you can gain experience and skills, including, communication, having those conversations with individuals who can share experiences, give you insights, give you guidance, and you have the opportunity of doing that at university as well as high school. So moving on to a CV structure. Now, again, this will depend on where you want to work, but in the UK, never put curriculum vitae at the top of your CV. An employer knows it's a CV, so you don't need to put CV at the top or curriculum vitae. Include your title and your name. So if you're in the UK, it's considered Miss, Ms, or Mrs, or Mr, or Master, or if you've got a doctor or something like that, use your title and then your name, because not all names are obviously male or female. Some names are male and female, so it's a way of just identifying you if they ring you or video interview you. And that includes my name. My name is unusual, Noeleen, so it's an Irish name, and it isn't very common. So you will find that people are not sure when they're addressing me in a letter or an email, dear, are you a sir or madam? So just be prepared for that. Personal contact information, I wouldn't want to see anything more than your name, address, phone number, email address, and LinkedIn link. You can include your LinkedIn link as well. Any additional information, and don't include 2 addresses. Pick an address where you know you will be when an employer is contacting you. So if you know that you're applying for jobs now and you're going to be in the UK for 6 months, then use that address. And again, you can change this depending on where you are and where you're applying. Your education is key to put on there, and you would include from the moment day 1 of your degree, you would include that on your CV. So if you started putting your CV together on the first day of your course, then that would include your education. And I'll go through a little bit more information. Your work experience would be on there, all work experience, and you don't have to define if it was part-time or full-time. Any positions of responsibility or achievements you gain through school or through any part-time jobs, or anything that you've done in addition to applying for a degree, as well as any activities and interests that you have. So the personal information, your contact details if you're in the UK, use a UK address, phone or Skype, email, LinkedIn. We don't in the UK, and this again does differ depending on location, and you can find the information online quite easily, whether you would require a photo, age, date of birth, gender, marital status, number of children. So in some regions of the world, they do require this information because of visas, because of healthcare insurance, because your family is sometimes included in that healthcare or availability of benefits that come with the role. But in the UK, we don't. So you don't put any of that information in the UK. So no photo, no marital status, children, age, date of birth, gender. And the reason for that is because we don't want you to be discriminated against. So we have very strict employment laws in the UK, and it's to stop anyone being discriminated against based on any of those identifiers. The education is reverse chronological, so your most recent is at the top, and then the oldest experience or oldest school reference is at the bottom. Include your high school or secondary level education up to degree level, what you're currently studying. In your, if you started your degree or you're going to start your degree, you can look at the kinds of modules that you're going to be studying and what employers might be interested in seeing. So if there are a couple of modules that you think would really benefit you for specific employers, include those. The skills that you've gained as part of your program, and again, even if you've only been there 2 to 3 weeks, you will very quickly realize the amount of group work, presentation work that will be involved, which develops all level of teamwork, leadership, creative problem solving. So your grade as well, you can include your predicted grade. So work experience section, action words. So it's not a list of tasks, it is a list of achievements. So start each bullet point. So you would have the date, your job title, company, and location. And then you would include action words. So each bullet point would start with created, led, developed, participated, worked, managed, supervised. The reason we do that is because if you remember back to the 6 to 20 seconds an employer will give your CV, they need at a glance to be able to see what you're capable of doing. And these action words can help them to understand your capabilities. And use bullet points and simple sentences, no more than 2 lines per bullet point. Highlight skills, responsibilities that were most relevant to the job you're applying for, and use them as key achievements, not tasks, as I said. How to structure your approach is what we call the CAR approach. So the CAR approach is context, action, result, and you can see there 10% is context. Action is what did you do? That's 80% of what you did. We're not interested in the team, we're not interested in everyone else. What did you do? And result, always end in a result, and try and quantify your information if you can. So you can use this for applications and interviews, and it's a great framework to use when answering questions. And it helps you to develop a story as well. So focus your attention on your action and result. That's what employers really want to know, is what actions you took, how you came to those conclusions, and the result. Did it result in increased in a final mark, improved efficiencies? Can you quantify it? What was the result? What can they see? So coming to the end now, so UK Study in particular helps international students confidence, working with you know, many different international groups, increases your self-awareness, you develop effective communication skills, professional global networks, international knowledge and experience, and this is through societies, clubs, work experience, placements, internships, and also a global mindset and cultural awareness. At the University of Manchester alone, we have 120 languages are spoken, so it is a very diverse culture at the university. Also understanding multiple perspectives during team working and working with others, understanding how you can get the most or maximize the most effectiveness from a group project by understanding how other people approach a problem. And then developing your independence and motivation. This is something that you will develop as part of a degree course. So UK study is very important and can really contribute to your CV and building of that CV. So I've given you quite a lot of information in quite a short period of time, I know. Normally I would do this over an hour and do demonstrations, but this is just a quick overview to give you the very basics. So at this point, if anyone has any questions.
Okay, Noeleen, thank you. So we have plenty of questions. So the first one, since CV Reader will only have around 20 seconds to decide, is it better to have 1 page or 2 pages CV, or is there any maximum pages?
So what I would say about that is in the UK, maximum 2 pages, but if you're applying in the US, for instance, it's a maximum 1 page. So that's where it's important to understand your market. Also in the UK, I say maximum 2 pages, but then again, if you're applying for banking, finance, or consulting, it's 1 page. So knowing your market and doing that research is absolutely vital to know what an employer will consider. Most employers will consider 2 pages. And the reason for the 2 pages is that all the best stuff should be on the first page. And then that draws the employer in, and that will bring them into the second page. So that's where your education, your experience should be on the first page, and that's going to draw the most attention.
Okay, so I mean, how do an employer assess the CV with only 20 seconds?
It's easily done. I've been doing it for years. You'd be very surprised how quickly you can scan. And that's where the action verbs are very important, because what you're doing is figures draw the eye. So if you can quantify, so worked as part of a team of 10, straight away 10 draws my eye. I can see you've worked as part of a team of 10. I know that you work in big teams. I know that you can work in diverse teams if they're from 3 countries. And then I can see that you've managed, you've led, you've created. Okay, that's going to bring me in a bit more. So the first 20 seconds or so is I'm looking for keywords and I'm looking for key numbers and phrases, and then that's where I'll stay with the CV longer. But if I'm scanning a CV and it's a mess and it's no attention to detail and I'm having to read half a line in before I figure out what it is you're trying to tell me you did, then I'm just going to discard it.
Okay, so this is still related to the previous questions. So which part of the CV that employer consider these candidates will be in the shortlist, or maybe accepted, or maybe not?
Education and experience. So if education is a qualifier, so if they've specified that you must have a degree or be on a degree or have a certain level of high school education, then that's where education is going to be really important. Always included on the first page anyway. But the experience is where you're really going to draw an employer in. It's a competitive market, and we know during these uncertain times it's going to be even more competitive. So any experience that you can get, and especially in the UK, a lot of our students are doing volunteering for the NHS, and I don't know if you know about harvesting and packing the fruit and vegetable as well. We have a big shortage in that, so a lot of our students are volunteering. That shows an employer during difficult times of crisis, you're still capable of working, managing your own workload along with your studies and contributing to society. So it's that kind of information that really makes you stand out.
Yeah. Okay, so still related to the work experience. If we don't have any relevant work experience, should we leave it empty, or we put it anyway?
No, so until you have 10 years work experience in your chosen career, everything you do is relevant, everything. So even if you're going into finance and you've only had a part-time job in a restaurant, that is still relevant, because the skills you've developed as working part of a team, problem solving, working under pressure, dealing with heavy workloads at busy periods, all of those skills that you've developed are relevant. So until you're a banker for 10 years, all of those experiences are relevant.
Okay. Is there any different CV for applying job and applying for a postgraduate degree?
So the postgraduate degree, you would be looking at including a statement as well. So that's similar to doing the job research that I mentioned for the CV. You would be looking at researching the program, researching the university, and trying to correlate why your experience on your undergraduate program and what you've done in your extracurricular activities mean you're a good candidate for that program. And also as well, universities like to see, you know, what are you going to do with this qualification as well? So how are you going to use this postgraduate qualification in your career going forward?
Okay, so still related to the academic CV, how many format of academic CV and what information we should add?
It depends on what you're applying to, and it depends. Most higher education institutions will have an application form as opposed to a CV. Where you might need a CV is when you're applying for academic jobs rather than further education. So it's the statements that's going to differentiate you from other candidates, where whether you're going on a PhD or a master's level program, they will expect a statement of why you're a good candidate, and that's where your research is vital. So you don't really need to worry about an academic CV until you've had your PhD, basically.
Okay, that's really helpful. So any tips, Noeleen, for us to describe ourselves for our CV without being overconfident?
I don't think is that in reference to the personal profile at the top of a CV.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't think, unless you've worked in an industry that you're applying to, that a personal profile is effective. And again, that's my personal view. I know some others will think it is. If I'm an employer and I'm reading University of Manchester, engineering student, looking for a career in mechanical engineering, and I've read that 40, 50, 60 times, it's going to get exhausting. Unless you've got something where you can differentiate yourself, where you can say engineering student with 4 years work experience, including internships in mechanical engineering, renewable energies, then I want to read it, because that highlights to me, no more than 2 lines, but highlights to me quantifiable experience, insights into different industries, and that you're a student studying a relevant qualification. But if you have nothing to add to that, just leave it out. It's not gonna disadvantage you by leaving it out. In fact, if you've nothing really poignant to say or quantifiable to say, it's probably best to leave it out, if that makes sense.
Okay. So next one, how do you accentuate the soft skill like the leadership skills and communication to their CV?
So giving examples. So with the leadership skills, you can say led a group of 4 individuals. If this is, say, a part-time job or internship, say you're giving an example, led 4 individuals on a task to redesign the menu for our restaurant, where I managed input, including design ideas, and, you know, liaised with, and this is where the communication comes in, liaised with the head chef to understand what the menu would involve so that we could communicate effectively to customers what was on offer and when. So that shows leadership and communication. So it's thinking about, as I said, not listing like answer the phone, sat customers down, you know, handed out menus. I understand that. I want to know what skills you use. So it's kind of thinking about times during that experience that you really proud of, that you want to convey. And that could include, you can include that in your group work as well. So if you're struggling for work experience as part of your program, you will more than likely do group work. So again, have you led a group as part of your program? If not, or you're thinking, try and do that, look to do that in the future. Also, any involvement in clubs or societies. So if you've done that through a club or society, or even as a, say, a house rep at high school, or a class rep at high school, you know, did you obviously were a leader in that position. Give an example of when you had to communicate to senior management the concerns of the students. So it's something like that.
Okay. Should we give examples of achievements? For example, increase sales by 85% or keep to a description of the job role?
I would rather see, because I would have a fair idea as an employer what sales would involve. What I want to know is what your achievements are. So if you have improved sales by 10%, that says to me you've got negotiation skills, you're a good communicator, you're effective in what you do. So again, using your key achievements. It's okay if you feel that you did something a little obscure or niche to clarify a little bit. If you feel that that is worth doing, but you generally, I want to see the achievements.
Okay. Is there any special format or tips to make a great CV while which will be considered university to accept as a student, especially? Yeah.
Well, most universities, again, it's an application. So you really need to look at the application forms and how you would put that together rather than the CV. But just research the program and do your research as well about the career prospects for doing that program and where you would want that to be, whether it's at home, in your home market, where it's somewhere else in the world. And the one thing I will say about a CV is if you're applying in the English language, so if you're applying in the UK, make sure that your computer is set to UK English, because UK English is completely different from US English. Spellings are different, and the British people are very proud of their English language, so they don't like to see US English used on any applications.
Okay. Should we mention non-academic achievement?
Yes, I mean that could come under interests or hobbies. It could come under positions of responsibility. It could come under volunteering. It depends on how you want to format your CV. So the titles of sections are entirely up to you. The first two being education and work experience. After that, it depends on what your background is and what you want to convey to an employer.
Okay. So there's a question relating to the creative fields. If we want to apply on the creative fields, should we send only creative CV or both formal and creative CV?
It depends. You would have to gauge the company and see because some creative companies can be quite formal in their approach, whereas say younger companies that might be new startups that might engage with a lot more online platforms, for instance, they might require more edgy or creative application CV, video CV, however you want to approach it. But that information you could either get from, there's a website called glassdoor.co.uk or glassdoor.com, and that lists employers around the world, and people who've gone for interviews or applied or worked there will leave reviews and tell you what happened. So that can give you insight. But also reaching out to people within the organization and get an idea through conversations. You know, I just want some advice and insight. People are usually happy to give that. And that can help you then to formulate how you're going to apply.
Okay. So next question, is chronological CV better than skills-based CV, and when to use them?
Okay, so I would say most graduates chronological, because many graduates, unless you're going back to university to do qualification to say back up 10 years of work experience, which some of us have done, I would say stick to the chronological. If you have got 10 years work experience and you're in a field like engineering or software development where your skills is what they're looking for more so than they're not interested about your experience, they're interested to know what you can do, then that's where I would look at using a skills-based CV.
So yeah, another question, if I'm applying for computer science major and I have art and environmental certificates, should I attach them?
I wouldn't attach them. What I would do is I would put them under qualifications. So you can either put another section on your CV that says certificates and qualifications. That can either come between experience and education, but again, it's for you to assess how relevant they would be to an employer. So if you think it'd give you that advantage, then put them on the first page. If you think that it's a nice to have, then put them on the second page.
Okay, so we have 2 more questions. Does the CV has to relate it to the attachment? So for example, if we have the experience but we don't have the documents, should we mention that?
Clarify that for me a little bit more.
So for example, let's say I have experience in marketing, but I don't have the document, for example, training in marketing.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, employers at graduate level will, they will take any experience that you've got. It's how you articulate it that's important. Any training, especially if it comes along marketing or accounting, you will get as a part of your development, professional development on the job anyway. So I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, if you wanted to, especially during these times, a lot of people are doing online courses at the moment to upskill, and there are many programs now that are free online, short programs free online. You could see if there's a way of getting an online certificate just to, give yourself a bit more insight, and it will also help you to understand whether marketing is for you as well. So, that there can be advantages to that, but it wouldn't be a disadvantage if you didn't have the documentation to back it up.
Last question, but I think this is really relevant. One of the participants wants to know, can they see your CV?
Can they see my CV?
Yes.
You can check me out on LinkedIn, if that helps. So LinkedIn is kind of a version of your online CV, and that will give you an idea of how you would, or what information you would include. But LinkedIn, compared to a normal CV, gives you the opportunity to add much more information. So there's far more information on my LinkedIn that I would put on my CV, but on my CV what I would do is I'd pick the best bits. So LinkedIn is also 93% of recruiters are on there now as well, so they are recruiting directly through LinkedIn. I actually got contacted the other day, headhunted for my LinkedIn profile. So get on LinkedIn and get your CV sorted, and if you're nosy and want to have a look at my LinkedIn, go ahead.
Oh, that's good, Noeleen. Thank you very much, and all the participants. So after this session, we will share Noeleen presentation via email. So the Culture Connects Us online festival will run until May 17. So tomorrow at 3 p.m. Jakarta time, there is a session on Industry 4.0, what it is and why it matters for students, with presenters from 2 leading UK universities, co-founder Inspigo, co-founder ThinkWeb, and Prudential. Follow our Instagram at ID British to get more updates. Thank you, Noeleen. That's very helpful. Thank you very much for your participation. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.